Detection Collaborative, a detection dog training trio with Stacy Barnett.
Hi.
Robin Greubel.
Hey there.
And Crystal Wing.
What's up?
With humor and a big dose of theory, our trio talks practical training advice and features interviews with top trainers and scientists.
It's Canine Detection Collaborative.
Welcome back to the Canine Detection Collaborative. I am Crystal Wing, and my amazing co-hosts are Stacy Barnett.
Hello.
And Robin Greubel.
Greetings.
It's the Greubel greetings.
It is. I feel kind of like a little alien person when I'm like, greetings.
Makes me laugh every time.
We were chatting last time, and I still had pages of notes. And so let's just keep that chat going a little bit. And this one's about consistency. And I'll be honest, I struggle with consistency. I know I'm not alone in that. But here's the thing. We expect our dogs to be reliable, but we're often the ones changing the rules on them without realizing it. So today, let's talk about what consistency really means in training, why it's so hard to stick to, how to improve it without driving yourself or your dog crazy. There are so many parts and pieces to consistency that this may just keep on going. So let's hit the ground running. Why does consistency matter in dog training? What do you guys say to that?
Oh, that's huge.
It's like everything. Like, no matter what you're trying to do, if you want to get a really good outcome, you've got to have consistency in general. Otherwise, you're just really going to struggle. If you're inconsistent in everything, you're just going to have inconsistent outcomes.
Yeah, I think your dog doesn't know what behavior they're going to earn reinforcement for. I mean, that's tough.
Well, we talk about the whole stimuli, right? Dogs make the association, we talk operant conditioning, even classical conditioning is done through stimuli, behavior, consequence type of things. There has to be an association that's made. If the consequence always changes, or the stimuli always changes, or the behavior that they do always changes, or any of those things changes, there's nothing that it convolutes the learning.
Inconsistent in equals inconsistent out.
Right.
Yeah.
This is one of those things that I was having this conversation with somebody not too long ago, and I'm like, sometimes means anytime. And when we talk about a dog walking odor, sometimes if you reinforce your dog or you allow them to walk odor, sometimes for them, that means anytime they can walk odor. If you sometimes allow them to break a sit, that means anytime that they can break a sit or a down or change a position on you and all of those sorts of things. And so, oh my gosh, when you start thinking about that consistency that requires for you as a trainer, it can get extremely overwhelming. And then we go all the way back to the fact that we're lumpy and we try and move things forward too fast. And therefore we're inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
And if we slice things thinner, we are then consistent, and our dogs are consistent and reliable.
So that actually kind of got me thinking the whole lumpy thing. So I'm kind of trying to think about, like, if you compared, you could be inconsistent and lumpy, and you can be inconsistent and slicing things down.
You can.
And it seems to me that both would produce inconsistent outcomes, but your inconsistency of your outcome is probably going to be greater if you're lumping.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the clearer and more predictable you are, the faster your dog's going to learn. I mean, that's just the way it works. And the thing I have to think about with my guys is that if I start feeling like they're being unpredictable, usually I check my own consistency.
Yep.
So anytime I'm like, this is starting to feel like I don't quite know what you're going to do here, immediately I know it's me. I'm not being consistent. Because I also hear someone a couple days ago said, my dog is just so stubborn. And I looked at it as the dog was just trying to figure out the pattern. I mean, it was just trying to figure out what in the world the handler was trying to tell it.
Yeah. I was also kind of thinking in terms of even like our own inconsistencies. Like, I don't think a lot of times we even recognize when we're inconsistent.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
And that's why when I start feeling like they're a little unpredictable, that's when it tells me, that's when I look for that. Because that's trying to think, like, how is it that I know that I'm being inconsistent? I don't make progress as fast.
Mm-hmm.
So when I start thinking, we should have done something by now, we should have already had that by now, I go, okay, I'm not being consistent. And almost always that's the answer. It's not really always about slicing it down smaller. A lot of times it's just, am I being consistent about it? Am I getting the reps in that I need?
It's interesting because one of the things that is interesting for me is we were training today and I'm standing there and I was like, we have to create a bigger contrast for the dog and so I'm going to have to owe Alyssa, I think we owe people chocolate or something when we do a shout out to them on the podcast. And I
mean, I'm sure she'd take it.
I'm sure she would. Or a coffee. I think it might be a coffee.
I don't know this rule.
I don't either. Well, I was just thinking about it.
Behind.
And I was like, we're behind. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, as we're doing this, I need you to take 3 steps backwards because we need to make a clearer delineation from the dog. We were trying to make it clear for Kyber, her new puppy. He needed to stay closer to the target than be closer to her. And by her standing 4 feet away instead of standing 7 feet away, it created confusion for him. And I ended up basically saying, okay, you have to stand behind this line because it created a consistent picture for him and allowed the learning to happen faster. In that teaching phase, that consistency is really, really important. And Crystal, you're absolutely right. If your dog hasn't picked it up, you really do have to go, okay, what about this picture am I changing? And I know our listeners hear us talk about it a lot is
the 4 Ds.
The I did. But I was actually thinking about
all 6 of them. Yeah.
The 60s. You did.
Yeah.
And our laboratories, right? Because for us, Kyber and the training building, this is his laboratory. He knows he can come over here. We can manipulate all sorts of the Ds. It's a very sterile learning environment, except for the 5 bajillion possible treats on the floor. And so we can say, no, this is what you're learning right now.
Right. So low distraction, known environment.
Known environment. And so I think that people expect the dogs to be able to jump things so fast, but they need that consistency and the number of repetitions to be able to really make those associations. And if you're constantly switching your words, and it was so fun to watch him because we even switched up due to how we made a change. And Kyber was like, but no, this is the pattern. You throw a treat there, then you throw a treat here, and then I do this thing. And we stopped throwing the second treat backwards, and he continued to do the pattern that we had set up for him previously for like 4 repetitions. And we're like, sorry, buddy. We changed the rules.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about setting up patterns is then when you purposely deviate from them.
Oh, that's hard.
No, that's how I use a lot of my teaching.
Yeah.
So because like, for instance, here's a quick one in my brain, teaching to say nose touch. So if I am rewarding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like back to back fast food in my hand to keep the nose in the hand, and then I pause just for a second, that little inconsistency makes them punch my hand a little harder.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No,
and
I was
so
just thinking
in that way, yeah. So being thoughtful in how you use that kind of out of the blue thing, because you've been consistent, now you can use that inconsistency as your training.
It's a contrast.
Yeah.
It's a contrast. Do you understand this? Yes, I understand it. Okay.
Yeah. And it can push through.
Yeah, they can push it just a little bit, and then you can reinforce the push.
I think unless, right, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here. Unless you've been accidentally consistent, I'm going to say accidentally consistent for so long. Right. That now it creates too much confusion for the dog as soon as you start to change things. things like our timing, if we are, we get very like teaching duration and we release the duration behavior the same amount of time every time. And all of a sudden we wait. We start to increase a little bit of confusion in the dog if the dog has been doing the same thing for a long period of time.
Oh, yes.
So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm thinking.
No. So that's where the one piece that I want to make sure that's heard there was the thoughtful inconsistency, that I'm planning when to be inconsistent so that I'm not staying that way forever. And I think that also brings up the other point of we're not saying to do the same thing forever, because so many people hit plateaus and they don't know how to go beyond that because they just do the same thing every training session. The dog is bored. Please stop.
And Stacy had a really, really good post, which made me do some thinking. And it's are you practicing or are you training?
Yeah.
And sometimes you do practice.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are stuck at a plateau in your criteria for a long time, then you're practicing a lot.
Yep.
And you're not moving your criteria forward. And if you're not at target behavior, you should always be moving towards target behavior. If we don't have that, then you have to go back and ask the question, why am I not there?
Yeah.
And remember that we're not robots and the dogs are not robots. So I'm so glad that came up early in this like this, that we're not maybe making people think that we're saying we do the same thing the same way every time, because that's really not fun in my mind.
No.
So it's that we're varying up our training sessions. We are adding more of our Ds to keep building our behaviors. We're growing each time. Fanny Gott's one of my favorite trainers, and she would always say that if she's not seeing improvement within 2 minutes, that she's going to change something up. And we talked about that last time. And it's just that you're always looking for growth, no matter where that growth is. So I think that's important. So I'm so glad you said that, Stacy.
Is this a good time to talk about kind of like different types of consistency?
Yeah, since we have 5 of them we kind of talked about. Let's do it.
Oh,
yeah.
Look at us.
Because we're kind of like,
why? Now what?
I mean, people are like, well, consistent. Like, how do we define consistency? It's like people are probably thinking, am I consistent? I don't know.
I'm not.
Like,
I know
what
I'm
does that
not.
look like?
It's my struggle. It is my struggle, capital C.
I think we all struggle with that. And I think it goes back to not necessarily recognizing when we're inconsistent until we see kind of what's going on with the dog. And a lot of times, even then, I think it takes a third party sometimes to even identify it. I know when I'm doing some coaching, like the inconsistency is usually one of the first things I look for when I'm reviewing a video with somebody. Like I'll be doing my, Zoom consults or whatever. And it's the first thing I'll pick up on because I know is usually the source of whatever's going on. And when I point it out, people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know it. Like, whoa. And people who, have really, really great skills and they're experienced trainers. And it's like, we just kind of fall into these things, I think.
It's interesting because in some of my coaching, what I've actually started doing to students is go back, watch your own video. I want you to count how many times you cued something more than once. And I don't even count for them.
Yeah.
I ask them to go do it. And usually I get a typed message back, oh my God, I'm horrified. And I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that brings up one of the 5 that we kind of mentioned. We talk about before this that we have cues, timing, we have mechanics, criteria, and reinforcement were the 5 we just kind of brainstormed on.
Look at us. We now have the 5 C's of consistency, or yes. And the 6
I love it. And the
D's of detection.
Right. Well, these aren't all C's though. Cues, timing, mechanics, criteria, reinforcement.
They're the 5
There's just 5 things of consistency.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
CMTR.
By the time the episode launches, we'll have something cool figured out.
But with your cue is something that I'm always reminding people too. My friend Susan Cleveland, she did this to me one day and I was so mad at her, but she told me to play the name game. And I was like, what is the name game? Like, just call your dog. She's like, no. Every time you say your dog's name, I want you to reinforce your dog, either with praise, with social, with food, with toy. I don't care. But your dog, every time you say their name, reinforce them. Okay, when you said about the person didn't realize how many times they say something, when you tell somebody to play the name game, you realize how many times you say your dog's name, and your dog's name means nothing. And it's the same thing if you're saying sit, 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 sit. It's the same idea. So if you want to start somewhere, that's where I would advise. If you're trying to see something you can be consistent with from now on, every time you say your dog's name, reinforce your dog. Because what do you want to happen when you say their name? You want them to engage with you, to look at you, to show interest in you. So there's one little takeaway you can do, just the consistency of cues to start with.
Unless you're sending them after a bird and then you want them to launch forward. But
well, unless their name is a cue. Yeah.
Yes. So that's absolutely right. And that was one of the reasons I put together that whole graphic about bridges.
Oh, I love that one.
Right? Because this was one of those conversations that I started having with people. Well, what does that marker mean to you? Is that how you always use it with your dog? And people have to understand that when your trainer or your coach, because, we just had that episode on virtual coaching, when we ask you questions sometimes, we may think we know the answer, but what we really, really need you to do is actually give us the answer so that we know that you've thought about it. And sometimes I ask the question and then people start talking through it and they realize they're being inconsistent with how they're doing certain things. And I often refer to, and I'm sure people have heard me talk about this, that you're constantly writing a contract with your dog. And the pointy-eared dogs have much more legalese in their contracts most of the time than the labs or some of the floppy-eared dogs, unless you have a very pointy floppy. But
I'm going to say I've got kind of like mid flops.
Right.
I mean, their ears are floppy, but
they're attitude-wise, they're kind of pointy.
Yeah, they're kind of pointy-ish. Spicy floppy.
Yes, spicy floppies. You have to understand your boilerplate language is, Crystal just looked at me. Can you tell I've been writing a lot of standards lately where we have boilerplate language?
Yeah. Hello, corporate speak.
It's corporate speak for the standard language, template language that's included in a contract.
Yeah, boilerplate. Okay.
Boilerplate.
And then if you have a chemical engineering background, it actually kind of almost, anyway.
If you look at the bottom of almost any news story or press release, there is a boilerplate at the bottom of the press release that talks about
I didn't know that's what it was called.
Yep, that's what it's called. It's called boilerplate.
I'm going to research why it's called that now.
I'm sure it's because there was a plate on a boiler that had standard information on it, would be my guess, but I'm going to make that up. So somebody tell me I'm wrong.
I'll look
Crystal's
it up later.
going to come back with the actual
answer. Yeah.
Really.
I'll look it up later.
Okay.
That's going to be kind of
so welcome to that rabbit hole. But anyway, so there's your contract. And people will ask me, what's your cue? And I will start telling them my cues, and my cues from Dash, who is now 8, all the way down to Flash, who is 2, and the puppies who are coming out soon are they're all the same, because that's my boilerplate language. Because the reason I use plots as a boilerplate for the word down is because I poisoned that cue with my very first dog 20 years ago.
You did too?
I did.
That's why I use plots. My down became down. Put your head down, all the way down.
No, mine, I actually taught down using punishment.
Oh, no, I poisoned it with I just was so inconsistent with how I used it that it's like, let me just use a different word.
No, my border collie thought I was evil. Talon was like, you're a horrible human.
That's not how I poison.
Yeah, I shaped it using plots. And so every dog since then now uses plots.
And I have different words with different languages for my dogs because I thought that, and then if I was training two different dogs, I could use two different words. But now Checkmate knows both languages. Radish knows both languages. So I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I can't keep my brain straight.
With Checkmate, I messed up all the words and made Franglish, so just kind of had fun with words.
That's right.
And and then Quinn was all German. So
I have that boilerplate. And that's the type of thing that I really, really would love people to get to, is that it becomes, you have so much else going on in your brain when you're trying to train, that for me, thinking about some of that other stuff, I don't want to think about that other stuff. I'm worried about criteria. I'm worried about my timing. I don't want to worry about what word's going to come out of my mouth.
Ooh, let's talk about timing.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. Well, actually, before we do that, with the cues, there's so many ways we can be inconsistent.
Yes.
That it's not even just what we say, it's how we say it, right?
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
The word yes.
Yes.
And I do use yes, but I use it in a way that I'm not going to be conversational about it. I go, yes. So it's a very, I'm not it is clearly a marker. It's not, yes, it's not praise. It's something that's very specific and distinct. So I think there's consistency there. There's consistency in what you say.
I was a little confused by that this weekend. I think I had somebody that was saying, that they would never say their dog's name and use any of their cues in conversation.
Huh.
And I thought that doesn't bother me at all because when I'm talking, I can be in the van on the phone with the dogs in the boxes and I'm not concerned that I'll ever start throwing behaviors out at me.
No.
And I can even be standing in the same room with my dog in a working session where I put him down and I can say, well, I'm working on, and I can say the words of things I'm working on and having a conversation and knowing that the dog is in the off switch is on, or it's this is your time to rest.
Oh, sorry. Cute story, right? I can be in one room, tell somebody either plots or sit, and I look in the other room and Prize does it. That is actually, I'm kind of more all right, that's more fluency than I would expect with my other girls. So,
Aww.
And I think some of that also then for the dog depends on context.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that too, because I have a very clear start and a very clear end.
Correct.
So I have a ready and then I have a scatter, you're all done. And that is your working session. And if I'm telling you to go lie down or go be a dog, then your ears should not be cued into what I'm saying because I'm not going to reinforce it at that time. Right. So that's a great point.
And I have the problem that I think I shared this story with my no reward marker and flash and my nope.
Mm-hmm.
Joe was stirring the pot roast the other day.
Yeah, stirring the pot.
He was stirring the pot roast. We were having a conversation and he asked me a question and I just looked at him and went, nope. And Flash pinned her ears and turned and looked at me with the big eyeballs.
What did I do?
And what did I do? And which is for everybody out there in listener land is my no reward marker. And I looked at her, I'm like, oh, girlfriend, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
But that nope in her world will come out of nowhere if she's doing an incorrect behavior of whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Now, there's never been any punishment associated with it other than try again. But for her, that was enough to be like, I'm standing there sniffing pot roast. So it's just interesting for me, when we go to that consistency thing, for me, that nope for her has been used consistently enough like that, it has a punishment meaning.
Or here's another one where we accidentally become consistent on certain things with weird outcomes. If I tell Prize, knock it off, because right now I'm make very, very careful with what she's doing because physically she's hopefully pregnant, right? And I'm trying to make sure she doesn't do anything stupid. So if I tell her, knock it off, she's plotsing. And she looks at me like, you like plots? And then I look at her and I smile because I'm like, that was really cute. So I found now, knock it off now means that you down. And it's really kind of, so because she's like, you like this, you like plots,
I do, not at Mach 5. Yeah.
No, because then I laugh. And the laughing is reinforcing.
And that was one that I just made a post on recently too, because the laughter has been such a huge reinforcement for my dogs that I'm actually kind of using it now to capture some of the things that when they do it, I laugh. And just because I know how much they like that, so they'll do it again, because I've captured so many things I didn't want just from laughing that one time.
Yeah, case in point here, knock it off.
So I have to really check my emotions and my kind of energy coming into it as well, because that is one of the most reinforcing things for my dogs.
Well, and it's been really interesting. Sometimes I'll be like, I'm talking through people, sometimes coaching. Okay, they didn't do the behavior. You give the no reward marker, and then they're still looking at and smiling at their dog.
Oh,
and I'm like,
yeah, that's
no. Yeah, that's still reinforcement.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're making eye contact. Have you not seen all of those studies about all of the warm, fuzzy feelings? And they're like, but I'm like, I know. You're making your soul happy. I get it.
Yeah.
What do you think about timing?
Timing, inconsistency in timing?
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Oh gosh, yeah. Inconsistent timing creates inconsistent outcomes. I mean, it's just, and that although it comes down to purposeful inconsistency or purposeful consistency. So if you're thinking like a behavior chain, like search, locate, report, you may decide to, for instance, if you tell people sometimes mark at the end of locate versus mark at the end of their TFR for different purposes. But if you get to the point where you're just being inconsistent with your timing in general, what I find is that dogs start to get a little creative and they start to throw weird behaviors.
They get superstitious about what has to be included in the chain. And this is when you end up, and this is often what I see with people who have inconsistent timing. They've often pushed their duration too long, too fast, too soon. And dogs have superstitious behaviors that they throw in and then instead of going back and trying to fix it, now you have a dog that sits down, paws, barks, spins 3 times, yodels, and stands on their head.
And then they reinforce it because they don't want to not reinforce it because their dog was with odor.
Right. Yeah.
We're going to have to talk about that one of these days.
Right. And the timing piece is all based on your observation skills.
Well, some people use markers and some don't. So I think that's also something to consider.
It is absolutely. And if your timing is based on how fast you can get to source to reinforce, that's also hard because then you're anticipating and you're probably leaning in, which is projecting and crowding your dog.
And it's an unanticipated accidental marker. It's an accidental marker.
Correct. That's hard. And I mean, it's in general, you have all of these other different things that you're always constantly having to balance and work out that can you actually do a lot of it all at the same time and remain consistent. And this is one of the reasons why I do use a lot of markers is because it removes some of that inconsistency in my world from the dog or from me adding confusion in for the dog. So I really, really think that, and that's one of the reasons why I like having conversations with people who train differently, because I want to know how they are actually doing things, because how you train a lot of the time depends on your own personal physical abilities.
Well, the whole not using markers, that's really, that's a whole other episode, but that is not intentionally using markers. I think it's rare for people to be able to really work without pre-cues. And those pre-cues, even if they're not a verbal marker, those pre-cues can be really powerful. And if they're inconsistent in those pre-cues, or if they're consistent in those pre-cues in certain ways, you could end up with other issues, like things like starting to walk towards your dog before they've really located source, things like that.
Right.
So would you call that a marker then?
Well, kind of an unintentional, but it's kind of a pre-cue. Like you're kind of, it's predictive. So whatever behavior you're doing, it becomes a predictive of reinforcement to the dog. So the dog starts to pay attention to that. And when they start to pay attention to that, that's when we start to get into trouble, because then they start to then responding to that, which may be prior to, for instance, prior to source, locating source. Maybe they're in an odor pool and you're walking, and you're working the blind and you start walking towards them.
If you are consistently, because if we're talking about consistency,
right?
If you consistently start hovering and leaning in to go towards them,
that becomes a predictor.
Yeah, because you're anticipating them throwing your trained final response at source, and you have to get to source really fast to reinforce them. The dogs will start reading your body language, and they will start they'll be like, oh, odor has to be here somewhere. Let me start searching harder. And you could actually get into a situation where they might actually throw their trained final response behavior, even if odor is not there, because you are giving them the precursor cue of hovering closer because they acted like they were in odor, especially if you're doing them as blinds.
Yeah, it could be novel odor. It could be an odor pool. It could be just anything.
Yeah, whatever. And so it turns into this self-fulfilling prophecies type of thing. So if we want to talk about consistency, there's a really important time to be highly consistent in your training. When we're teaching the dog, because in my world, I have teaching, training, testing, right? So when I am teaching the dog, I am highly consistent. There's all sorts of things we're trying to we're teaching them, this is the stimuli, this is the behavior that we do, this is the consequence that happens. Then when we start getting into the generalization phase, then we start making sure that we still have the stimuli, we still have the behavior. We might have all sorts of other things that are starting to happen because we're generalizing. We can start being a little more inconsistent. This is where a variable schedule of reinforcement would come in. This is some of those other things that might come in. But when we start, that's the consistently inconsistent.
Yeah.
Right? That has to come in for operational level work.
So it's intentional versus unintentional.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
That thoughtful piece.
Yes. Thoughtfully inconsistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thoughtfully inconsistent.
Yeah. You have strategy to it. And I think it really comes down to everything that I'm hearing, that we're just saying that if you're too early or too late consistently with your marker, with your pre-cues, whatever it's going to be, your dog isn't getting the message you think they are.
Correct.
I mean, it's really what it comes down to. The timing really is that important. And so if you're launching that treat or that toy and it's after the dog has done something and you're rewarding it too late, or if it's too soon and they haven't had a chance to actually get there, all of those things, that the timing matters.
A lot. I have to stop myself a lot. Mark, then move. Mark, then move.
Yeah.
Mark, then move. And I still have to do it on myself. Mark, then move. Mark, then throw the food. Mark, then throw the toy. And it is that constant practice that ends up happening. So it does become muscle memory. And one of the things that even I have a new intern, and it's interesting being able to have those conversations of, have you done sports of some nature? We have different conversations when you've done sports or something else, because I physically coach differently. I think that is something that people underestimate the value of practicing without the dog.
Yeah. Well, and that pause between the marker and the reward, that's not hesitation, that's clarity.
Correct.
I mean, it's the example that I gave this last weekend at the seminar was I told everybody, answer this question. So I'm gonna throw it to you guys. Answer this question, okay? 2 + 2, 4. You guys, it's an easy question. Okay, I'll try it again. Answer my question, okay? 3 + 4, 7. You guys, come on. This is simple math.
Dude, math.
But you get it, right? I mean,
yeah.
You don't give that pause. You need to allow the process time to happen. I was trying to play. So Nancy, my training buddy, she has a German Shepherd named Ben. And I was really trying hard to be able to respond to the cues faster than Ben.
Oh, I saw that video. It was hysterically funny.
No, this was yesterday.
Oh.
And this was without a suit on. This was just me in the field with the dog without a suit. Just how fast can we go? He kicked my ass. There wasn't a single time that I could do it as fast as him.
Yay for
processed
Ben.
it and responded faster than I could even process the word. I'm like, da boo stand. Yep. I'm like, damn it. And so to get to that kind of fluency is really powerful, but she did that through consistency. It was really cool to watch them grow.
This is one of those really, really funny, interesting things that I didn't put this together until we're having this particular conversation. One of the things that happened when I was getting ready to defend my thesis was my major professor told me, he goes, I don't care if you know the answer to the question. When the person finishes asking the question, there should always be a pause so that you can make sure you are going to put the answer together correctly. And I think that people believe that when you click or when you say yes, that you have to deliver that cookie or that toy as quickly as possible. Yes, it's great. It shouldn't be 5 minutes later, but you can take the second and a half to reach into your treat bag and get your treat out in some semblance of a dignified fashion.
That actually makes sense. Like going back to the 2 + 2 = 4.
Yes.
Right? Like you've got it, that the dog needs a chance to process the marker.
Correct.
And associate that marker with the reinforcement.
It's coming.
That pause, it's not wasted time. That's the moment your dog is learning that the marker has meaning. So what so many people do is they'll say, like, for instance, if get it means throw the thing, their hand has the food or whatever, the toy, and they're saying get it as they're throwing the thing together. And so get it doesn't mean anything to your dog. So you can ask your dog that question. So think about the markers you use now, if you use any of those, and just say that word to your dog and see if they respond. That's one of my favorite things that Radish does. When I say get it, I've trained that I'm going to throw it behind her, and it's part of my out sequence as well. So when I say get it, you will see her almost jump out of her body. She jumps backward with this gusto and enthusiasm of like, you're going to throw my toy. And I can do nothing besides I can be so still, Frankenstein, and just say, get it. And she will have that huge explosion of reaction. And that's what I want to see in my dog, is that I want them to see that they know that that word means something. It's not just noise. So the marker does become noise when you're just using the reward and the signal at the same time.
Right.
So give yourself that pause. It is okay. We give you permission. In fact, we're begging you.
And practice it.
Because it's muscle memory.
Yes, it's muscle memory for us too. And one of the things that I like to, in your house, I'll give you permission to go get ice cream, either an ice cream bucket.
Oh, are you going to tell my amazing game? Come on. It's a good one.
No.
Huh?
No. Oh, darn. Okay. I'll share it too then.
You can do it. I was thinking an ice cream bucket you can use, because that would give you the excuse to go buy an ice cream.
Whole
right?
bucket of ice cream?
A whole bucket of ice cream. Or if you're at my house, we have 5-gallon buckets. But you can practice throwing your cookies at an ice cream bucket. Or you could use a dog bowl if you really wanted to be boring. But that will give you some place to try and throw your cookies if you're trying to throw your cookies so you can get your aim. Because remember, this is a mechanical skill. I encourage people to do this with their dog toys and a 5-gallon bucket or a wash basket or something, to just get used to click, throw the toy, click, throw the cookie, click, take a breath, throw the thing. right? Film yourself doing it so you can see how it's going. And you have to get in those repetitions. I think about how many times I had to spend shooting free throws in high school, how many hundreds and thousands of free throws. And I ended up getting pretty good at it by the end, by the time I was a senior.
So do you want to know how you empty that ice cream bucket? You play the amazing game or the
What's
awesome
that?
game.
What's that?
So thinking about your mechanics, going exactly what you're saying, you want to set a criteria, which we'll talk about briefly here in a second, but you'll set your criteria. And so if you're like, I have a busy street outside. So let's say, and it's ice cream. So I want to have a lot of it. I want to melt. So maybe it's every time a car comes from the right going to the left. And so I set a criteria. Then I have my spoon. I have my bucket of ice cream. I'm not putting in a bowl. I'm eating out of a bucket. This is why I'm single. And so I can have the spoon and just leave it in the bowl. That's fine. And then I'm going to have my hands on my lap or the table or wherever I'm sitting. I don't have a table, but whatever, pretend like I do. I'm not a total heathen, but I am. So hands are at my base and I will say awesome, because that is the word that makes me feel good. So choose a word that makes you feel good. I love it when somebody tells me I did something awesome or that I'm awesome. I'm like, oh, gee. So say a word that makes you happy. And so I see that car coming right when they hit the edge of my window. I say, awesome. I reach my hand in, I scoop of ice cream out and I shove it in my face and I put my spoon back in my bowl or bucket and I put my hands back to my base.
And her base is like at her sides next to her.
Yeah, if I'm sitting, it's on my lap. If I have a table, it's on the table, but there's a home base. It's not my hand in my pocket. It's not my hand in my bait bag or in my vest. I have a home base different than that. And so I can do that with ice cream or with popcorn or whatever, but I'm practicing those mechanics without my dog. And I'm getting that muscle memory as we're kind of talking about when you said free throws. So that's why the mechanics do become important, because if you're having to think about the mechanics while you're training your dog, that's really hard. That's really hard. So practice this without your dog. So think about it. Observe the behavior, mark the behavior, pause, reward the behavior, but I like to reward the behavior in a way that's setting up my repetition for the next sequence so that I can immediately observe the next behavior.
Yes.
So that's part of that reward sequence. That's where I try to be very consistent in my training, that's what my training should look like if I'm on a good day. Observe it, mark it, pause, reward it in a way that sets you up for the next behavior. So good mechanics make training smoother. Bad mechanics, you might not notice them at first, but your dog does. And that's the part that I always have to think about. So if your marker doesn't predict something, your dog is going to stop responding to it. So keep that in mind. Same with your cue. I mean, it's both ways.
And that's where we talk about stimuli, right? You have stimulus generalization and response generalization, and you can actually get things. So your stimuli means different things. And it was funny. I've been working on remote sits and downs with the dogs as part of their warm-up sequence in the training building because I am trying to do more puppy conditioning with all the dogs. And so they have to do warm-ups. And so as part of the warm-ups, I'm working on remote sits and downs and stands to sits and positions.
Mm-hmm.
And oh boy, does Nico think sit means down and down means sit when we're doing stuff. But all sorts of things mean down for him, but we have an emergency stop for testing purposes. And so I've been sloppy with that. So today I decided that we're going to try and fix it. And so that consistency piece is really hard.
Yeah.
There's so much we do with our body.
Oh my God.
It's not even that. It's that for me, I'm having the same problem with this, with sits and downs with Prize, but I think it's because of her TFR, the down has been so heavily reinforced because she has on a refine, a down at the handler.
Yes.
That it has so much value. The sit has very little value for her. So she will, and this is the criteria part of it, right? Like she's like, well, you like this better. I run into that.
Yes.
Something I saw too, that it was years ago that this really hit me hard doing obedience. I thought if my dog knows sit and my dog knows down, then they should be able to do sit to down and down to sit.
No.
And it was such a huge thing when I first, I mean, it was years ago now, but I mean, I was like, wait, it doesn't make sense. Like, you know how to sit, you know how to down. It's just that behavior, but it's not just that behavior. Transitions matter, the moments in between. So I had to teach a sit to down and a down to sit and a down to stand and do all those variations. And then to be consistent to get good positions, what I practiced with for a brief time, it was working. And then I quit doing it because I'm very inconsistent, is that for that entire week, I only worked on one of those variations. So I just worked on stand to sit, stand to sit, stand to sit. And it was amazing how that was really like, it was sinking in and it was working well. And then I would give that a break and work on a different one to let it just kind of stew around. And when I could put those back together, I could put them into chains and it was working so beautifully. And well, I didn't follow through, but it was going well.
It was going well. Yeah.
In searching, we also have those transitions that I think a lot of times people don't even really pay attention to, the transitions between the hides. It's a lot of the same stuff. It's like there's a lot of inconsistency in the way people cue the next hide. And that inconsistency usually results in kind of a choppy performance or potentially missed hides. If you're talking close proximity hides, you see inconsistency in arousal states, like all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing.
I'm wondering, do you guys have pushback from different people on when you're kind of helping them with mechanics?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm always kind of curious why some trainers give me some pushback when I'm like, I do think it's important that you get this, the timing, the pause, the things. And they're like, well, why can't I just keep my hand in my pocket? Like, I don't see what the problem is. And I don't want to go into like the whole lesson on overshadowing. And, I want to keep it brief and help them understand. But what is your kind of go-to for that?
More frustration from people who just want to go do the next thing. Like, yeah, they see it as kind of like, this is boring and stupid. Like, why are we even focusing? I do in my intro class, we have a part where we're working on markers. And I know sometimes I see like when people get behind, a lot of times that's the lesson that they skip. And I'm like, let's go back to that, because it really is like, I didn't put it in there just for filler. I put it in there because it was really important. And because when I look at the challenges that people have later in their careers with their dogs, this is a big piece of it. I know just even the last few years, I've really cleaned up the consistency of my own communication with my dogs. And it was probably one of the biggest impacts to my training that I've had. So I'm like super, super anal about teaching that from the very beginning. And I know people just like, they see that as like that's the stuff I don't really need to pay attention to. Let's just get to searching.
Yeah. So it's easier to train it right the first time than it is to fix it later.
It is.
I totally hear you. They don't see the immediate impact. And that's why you're so valuable, because those small inconsistencies, they're not showing up right away. But you know that when criteria gets harder, it is going to be a real bear later. And I think a lot of people are happy being close enough. Close enough is good enough.
Right.
And that always works until the behavior gets sloppy or unreliable. And it's so great to have your eyes there to see it now before it does become that monster.
Well, and I think that it's one of those things where hit that so much and you're competing or you're working at a certain level and you're like, oh my gosh, this is doing so fantastic. Everything's working so well, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden you hit a wall. Mm-hmm. Or you want to go to that next level of competition, or you want to do that next level of thing. And what you have been doing and your mechanics and your clarity and all of that sort of stuff won't allow you to move to that next level of training with your dog, because unless you have some of that consistency and clarity and all of the things that we're talking about, you can't get the consistency you need and the reliability out of your dog.
Yeah. The biggest thing I'm thinking of is a TFR.
Right.
Right. And you think about the precision relative to that TFR, right?
Right.
And how much easier it is to get that precision when the hides are easy.
Yes. I just spent a week recording 3 weeks worth of classes on teaching the locate portion for the Detection Dog Academy, right? it's actually quite complex. And the precision that you need to have on being able to set hides and understanding of all of that theory, when to mark a nose, when to expect the trained final response, all of that sort of stuff requires you to have an understanding of and being consistent on reinforcing nose to odor. Or are you reinforcing trained final response behavior? Or what are you understanding all of that stuff? Plus having good mechanics.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the inconsistencies in mechanics, they don't seem like a problem until they're the problem.
Correct. When they are a problem, then they're going to be a huge problem, and it will take twice as long to fix because now you have to fix the trainer or the handler, and then you have to fix the dog.
And you could have like many repetitions.
Correct.
At that point that now you're in a retraining position. Retraining is way harder than training.
Correct.
And like with a TFR, it is really easy to train it poorly.
Right. And once the behavior's in there,
it's in
there.
Yeah.
So here's where I feel like I get the most pushback is when I'm working with a search and rescue person versus a sport person. My search and rescue friends tend to be the ones that are very much good enough is fine. You're being too picky. You know, that we're fine. Just leave me alone kind of thing. And I'm curious, do you guys see that too? Or am I putting on the spot too much?
No.
Because, okay, here's where it is. I think in my sport trainers, and they're often focusing on extreme precision. You know, and so I'm working with like a lot of obedience, IGP.
Oh, okay. See,
and so that takes a lot of precision. And then when I'm thinking about when I'm working with my search and rescue friends, the dog is somewhere close enough. And they're like, they barked a couple times. That's good. It was an okay bark, you know, or it was an okay sit, or it's good enough.
I guess what I've seen, it depends with nose work folks. I get kind of a group of handlers that are very into wanting to make everything really perfect. And those are actually usually my upper level handlers.
I see where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I have a group where it's kind of, and I think it's partially because they haven't yet grasped how complicated the sport is. And so to them, it looks very easy. And so they're like, well, I just want to find the thing and get my ribbon. And it becomes this is good enough discussion.
Yeah, I hear that. It's going out for fun.
Yeah. So I see a big difference there.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm out training with people for the search and rescue stuff, I feel like there's definitely, at least the people I've worked with, very much taking everything very seriously. And so I don't necessarily see what you're seeing there. And it's probably just more I've worked with at that point.
Okay, here's better words. Working dog handlers are more about the functional reliability over perfect mechanics.
Okay.
I think that's where I'm trying to go.
I would agree with you there. It's much more about functional than the precision mechanics. But what I have found, when you have the precision mechanics, the functional actually comes faster.
Yes, that precision and training is going to make real world performance even easier. It's not going to make it harder.
Correct. And I think that that's my takeaway. So people, when we get to the takeaway portion and I come up blank.
Yeah, but you're expecting us to remember that.
Right. That's actually, we're probably at that phase anyway.
Yeah.
But we're close.
We're close.
So that's my takeaway. My takeaway is if you are talking about consistency, and precision mechanics, getting those in as early as you can in your training makes that functionality for our working dogs come faster. And if we can get that through people's heads, that being that precise, and I think that that's one of the things that I've learned watching somebody like Jens train, right? He's incredibly precise. And just watching how thinly you can slice things and be gnat's ass precise with a clicker.
I'm sorry, the visual.
Yeah.
I'm really, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about sliced is about thin as I've ever really pictured in my head.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard that terminology.
No,
but,
no.
Oh,
I've not.
Really?
No,
Okay.
but I'm going to use it.
I mean, yeah.
Boilerplate, gnat's ass. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's your new ones, new things for today.
I'll write that one down.
Yeah. That's literally when I start thinking of slicing behaviors, that's what I'm thinking with my clicker. So if we are that precise with our training, especially when we're teaching behavior so that our dogs know exactly what they're supposed to do, the functionality comes out later and the fluency comes out later much faster than if we're really sloppy in the beginning. Because then I have to go back and clean everything up. Let's just start with really tight criteria and go from there. And we're good.
So we've covered cues. We've covered consistency in cues and timing and in mechanics. We also wanted to talk about criteria and reinforcement. We also wanted to talk about why it's so hard and how to improve your consistency. So I think maybe we need to make this into 2 episodes.
I think we do. I think people we'll just have to leave everybody cliffhanger.
You're just saying that because Robin's are so she's like, I already done my takeaway.
Stacy, do you have one?
See, I wasn't ready for that, but yeah, my takeaway is probably going to be a little bit more general. It's just the fact that if you are running into training problems, one of the best things that you can do is to take a look at your consistency and see if you're accidentally inconsistent, see if you are accidentally consistent in the wrong ways. And if you video and if you have somebody who can watch that for you, watch it with you, just to, have like another set of eyes can be really, really helpful because sometimes we're not aware of what we're doing until we just kind of look at it from the outside.
I was going to use the first one you said. Because that's what we started with. So I was saying that I was like, okay, when I'm not consistent, when my dog's doing something unpredictable, I immediately look to my inconsistency.
But you know what? You can
come up with another one. Or you can just say ditto work.
I would say if you say, you know what, that's a great one, that should tell everybody it's really important.
I do want to go back and hit back on the other thing too of observe the behavior, mark the behavior, pause, reward to set them up for the next sequence. And so it's not a line, it's a circle. It's this continuous loop and give them that time to breathe. What this just hit my brain. Simon Sinek. He was just talking about how one of the most powerful things we have as if you're talking to people, instead of trying to cram a whole bunch of stuff in, slow down because that pause, that breath that you take, it captures more attention. And if we think about that when you listen to people and they're very thoughtful in how they put that pause in, notice how that feels. And it's the same thing we do for our dogs. It's that same sequence. I don't know how that just came to my brain, but
that's
there you
brilliant.
go.
Yeah.
That was a cool one. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at that pause. I want to just shove everything in as fast as I can. I'm like, I've got more things to say.
Because I'm going to forget it if I don't say it. Yes. I need to get it all out. Yes. I totally get you. All right, everybody. So this is part 1. Part 2 is coming up in 2 weeks. So make sure you set your little alarm clocks for part 2. Anybody have anything coming up?
I don't even know what day this is. Whatever.
We don't know. Check the show notes. It's in the show notes.
There's stuff in there.
There's stuff there. I know we all have coaching communities. Crystal's started using Linktree, which is actually super duper cool. So you might actually see the number of links go down, but you can check out our Linktrees, which provides all of our links.
All in one place.
All in one place. And then you can check the most convenient way for you to get a hold of us. So thanks, everybody, and go train.
And be consistent.
Canine Detection Collaborative. We
We appreciate the time you spend with us. If you liked this episode, not only should you follow us so you don't miss the next one, but please also rate and review us in your favorite podcast app. For info on collaborating with us, go to K9DetectionCollaborative.com. That's K9DetectionCollaborative.com, where you can find our socials and pick up our latest monthly freebie. Join us again to talk training in the next episode.